Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushenu b'mitzvotav v'tzivenu v'lasok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us in his commandments and commanded us to engross ourselves in the words of the Torah. Shabbat Shalom. But it's actually nighttime here. Sabbath is actually, I think, just got over here, but I'm just now posting the my Torah portion commentary on what I think. You know, it's incredible today when you listen to Torah portions like this. It's incredible. Last week we did Yitro, which is, in English we say Jethro, which is a priest of Midian, which is Moses' father-in-law. And this week we're doing Mishpatim, which is judgments. And he gives how to do judgment and instructs us on how to do things the right way concerning slaves, concerning social laws, concerning restitution, concerning his covenant, concerning the conquest going forward, how to deal with people, how to judge rightly in matters going into the land of Canaan, how to judge others. And it's incredible. It's incredible. You know, this week's Torah portion contains a lot of laws. You know, how do we measure justice today in America? Exodus chapter 21 through 23 reads like an ancient legal code. It's totally foreign to America today. Of the 613 commandments the sages traditionally derive from Torah, more than 50 of them are found in this week's portion. For some reason, many Christians and a lot of people in the world, in the church, all over for thousands of years have been teaching. Well, I shouldn't even say thousands. I shouldn't even say that. I should say a couple hundred. Well, I mean the Western Roman Catholic Church, yeah. 1,000, maybe 2,000. A lot of years, but still, they teach that the Torah is it's a bad thing. If it's in common that the law is opposite of grace. And you might actually hear somebody say that to you. You might even hear that if you're in America and you're around a lot of Christians, you're around a lot of Bible-believing people, that we're no longer under law, we're under grace. The implication, though, is that since we have received the Messiah, we need not concern ourselves with the laws in the Old Testament. We can call this idea grace versus law. Let's think about grace versus law. What does that really mean? There's a lot to be said there. I won't go completely into that. Just quickly say that when we say that we are not under the law, does that mean that we don't have to keep God's rules anymore? For example, does that mean I can commit adultery and go steal stuff? Does that mean I can go get high and drunk and go pick a fight? No one would say that. So what does that mean? What does that actually do? Does it mean we don't have to obey God anymore? The grace versus law concept is completely flawed. It's not what was supposed to be implicated when Paul first talked about it. In his writings, it seemed that Paul, to a lot of people, it seemed that they took that as they were pitting these two ideas of law and grace against each other. But in fact, justice and mercy and faithfulness were all taught by Yeshua, and above all of them, with mercy and faithfulness above those, was justice. Justice was the main thing, that we do Torah, that it instructs us on how to live rightly in our lives. But how do you do that if you don't obey God's rules anymore? So one might misunderstand statements that Paul makes, like before faith came, we were kept in custody under the law, Galatians 3:23, or if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law, Galatians 5:18. One might misunderstand these statements to mean that Christians do not need to keep God's rules. Of course, that would be absurd. Don't quote me on those verses. Read them for yourself. Paul realized that some people might misunderstand his teaching, so he cautioned us not to suppose, to think, to misunderstand that grace gives us a free license to go out and sin. Screw your neighbor's wife, go thief, be a thief, go be a murderer, go, be a liar. That does not mean we don't obey God anymore. What shall we say then? Are we Romans 6 verses 1 through 2? What shall we say then? Are we to continue in sin so that grace may increase? May it never be. How shall we who died to sin still live in sin? Do we then nullify the law through faith? May it never be. The contrary, we establish the law. Romans 3:31. I have a question. If God says to us, I pray that, what did it say? It said that they would not be, it was something to the effect of, it would not be a Sabbath day when they make their journey. Well, if we're not keeping the Sabbath anymore, how is it that he prayed that he hoped they wouldn't be on a Sabbath journey? If it wasn't a Sabbath day, if they weren't keeping Sabbath, if there was no longer a Sabbath day consecrated to God, then why did he pray that we wouldn't be journeying on a Sabbath day? And he mentioned it during a specific time, and that it wasn't cold at that time. Grace is God's free gift of salvation. Those who believe in his Son, his law, his loving instruction for how his people should live, grace versus law is a false dichotomy. They're meant to work hand in hand. It's not that you get saved so you no longer have to keep his laws. It's because you're saved you keep his laws. We're supposed to keep his laws, period. We're supposed to try to. Can we actually do it? No. Can we actually be perfect? No. But we can try. We can try to obey God because it's good. God is he's so righteous that he says that if you even strike or curse your parents, it's as grave a sin as it's worthy of death. That's Exodus chapter 21 verses 15. This is shocking to most people. They go, what do you mean if you curse or strike your parents, you should die? There is no indication that I'm making that a parent was killed or even badly hurt in an altercation that happened with the kid. And the mere act of hitting one's father or mother is enough impudence, though, to God, that it deems it as murder, according to God. The mere act of hitting one's father or mother is enough impudence that it's deemed as murder. It's as bad as murder. This shows us how God's values are sometimes different from ours. Of course, we would never advocate striking one's father or mother, but we would never feel comfortable putting someone to death for doing so. Right? And that's what I mean by today the world is a different place. This isn't extremism. This is God. Somebody would say, hey, maybe he needs anger management classes. Sure, maybe some counseling, but death by stoning? Probably not. I could see people in America losing their minds over that. But to me, and I think to the rest of the world, and everybody can agree that it completely brings shame to your family, it completely dishonors your entire family, and that God sees things differently when he says honor your father and mother. He means it. And that's just a microcosm. That's just an antidote to the fact in America that we absolutely have lost our sense of value as it comes to what's right and just and good, and that it's so important on the most basic, simple level for a child to learn to honor his parents and to be a decent person in society, in the world, socially. That it makes so much sense that if you lose that fact, then you're losing everything else as far as justice. Society today teaches children that to disrespect their parents. Society today, particularly teenagers, it's the normal to your teenagers to speak to their parents as if they're nobody, with impudence and insolence. Their parents are just impertinent. They're not important at all. Just, you hear children speak to their parents, just no respect, no honor. I think that's a clear sign. We've lost the biblical values of honoring father and mother. And the Apostle Paul warned that in the last days a spirit of rebelliousness would be unleashed upon the world. He said that men will be arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable. That's 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 2 through 3. Again, 2 through 3. Again, don't quote me on these verses. Read them for yourself. It's just, I'm not perfect. I've been disrespectful to parents. I've been bad. I've kinds of terrible things, but they're also facts. These things are also true. To be just, you have to accept these things. These things are a fact. The best thing you can do is avoid people like that. If you have kids and you see that they're hanging out, would you ever allow them to hang out with murderers and thieves and liars and, riffraff, ramble rousers, whatever, thugs, bikers, whatever you want to call them? Would you allow your kids to hang out with those people? Why would you allow your kids to hang out with other kids that disrespect their parents, dishonor their parents? You're asking for trouble. You're asking for problems. It's the same thing. That was like my little, the thing that I really got from this Torah portion commentary, just coming out as I take these and I listen to these laws, and I see how they're in such stark contrast with the world, the country, and the community, and the culture, the people, the the politics, just everything about America. And it's just like today. And it just struck me. And, you know, good child rearing advice is, you want to be righteous and you want to be a good person, hang out with good righteous people, you know, and hope your kids do the same. And, you know, try to see things as God sees them. You know, disrespect and dishonor your parents is like murder. And just kind of, you know, that's one of them. I mean, there's a lot in there, but I mean, that's one thing I wanted to kind of focus on, is, you know, kind of look at, was that one thing in the commentary is just incredible. I mean, I don't know, I'm just shocked. I'm shocked. Just when I sit and think about it, I was never allowed to do any of that when I was little. Did I get away with it a couple times? Sure, yeah. No, actually, no. I never did get away with it ever. But today, I guess that's what strikes me, is today it does happen. Get away with it. Something beautiful in this Torah portion was in Luke chapter 7 through chapter 8 verses 3. It says that a sinful woman is forgiven. In verse 36, one of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him, and he went into the Pharisee's house. This is chapter 7. I believe Luke. Yep, Luke chapter 7, verse 36. One of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him, and he went into the Pharisee's house, and he took his place at the table. And behold, a woman of the city, who was a sinner, when she learned that he was reclining at the table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of ointment. And standing behind him at his feet, weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears, and wiped them with her hair of her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with the ointment. And now when the Pharisees who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would have known who and what sort of woman this was who was touching him, for she is a sinner. And Jesus answering said to him, Simon, I have something to say to you. And he answered, Say it, teacher. A certain moneylender had 2 debtors. One owed 500 denarii and the other 50. And they could not pay. He canceled the debt of both. Now which of them will love him more? Simon answered, The one, I suppose, for whom he canceled the larger debt. And he said to him, You have judged rightly. Then turning toward the woman, he said to Simon, Do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in she has not ceased to kiss my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore I tell you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But he who is forgiven little loves little. And he said to her, Your sins are forgiven. Then those who were at the table with him began to say among themselves, Who is this, who even forgives sins? And he said to the woman, Your faith has saved you. Go in peace. You see, Jesus judges rightly. We don't judge rightly. Here's a person who's gone way off the deep end. Nobody would deny. I mean, well, in today's society, I guess today's society is even then at that time, there were people who would deny that the way she was living her life was okay. Even herself would make an argument that the way she was doing things in her life, to an extent, was already to an extent that it was okay and she was doing it. And there are people who think they know how to judge rightly, who look at a situation and say, this guy's, he can't be a prophet. If he were a prophet, he would know who she was and what sort of woman she was touching him, for she is a sinner. But the Lord is the Word made flesh. He is God, and he can judge all matters righteously. And he judges her righteously. And he demonstrates mercy. And he judges her justly. Before he does so, he asks the young man, or he asks Simon, Simon, there was a certain moneylender who had two debtors, who had 500 denarii and the other owed 50. When he could not pay, he canceled the debt of both. Now which of them will love him more? And Simon answered, the one, I suppose of whom he canceled the larger debt. He said to him, you have judged rightly. Then turning toward the woman, he said to Simon, do you see this woman? Since I came in, she's in this and this and this and this. You've done none of, she's done this. You haven't done any of these things for me. And he forgave her. Today, do we have that kind of judgment? Are we able to demonstrate that kind of mercy rightly? Are we able to actually see faithfulness through the law when people are being faithful? When people are showing real attributes, are we able to discern how to really judge and deal with matters so that we can live righteous lives? Because this covenant that happened thousands of years ago with Israel, and it was given to us by God to live righteous lives, to obey God, to have his instruction, his counsel, that we're not arrogant, but that we're humble people, that we recognize him as our Lord, that we need him, and we need his judgment to see our faithfulness and demonstrate his mercy in our lives so that we can be forgiven and we can be justified around all those people that are judging us wrongly. Shabbat Shalom.